Hey guys, MisterSima here, coming at you with the patch note 5.9, and today we'll just go over it really quickly. So we start off with the new attack move functionality. Basically, all they change is when you A-click somewhere, it just make it so instead of like attacking the nearest target as normally, you would like attack the area around it and then target champions around where your mouse is instead of the nearest target, which is actually good. It'll make clicking things easier and all that good stuff. Changes to combat text. It's just for clarity, it just makes big damage appear bigger when you see the numbers and less significant damage appear lesser, like smaller. So for the biggest change, let's go over Ash. On this patch, Ash got a pretty big overhaul on some key abilities. First off, the biggest change is her passive. She no longer has the old shitty passive where you have to wait and get a guaranteed crit. The only thing you could do with that was just cheese. Her new passive is Frost Shots. Basically, her old Q. Um, every auto attack slows, and volley always slows her target by 5% at level 1, and it increases by 6% every 3 levels, and at level 5, I mean at level 16 it does 35% slow, which is fucking huge, so it's good for her. Also, the other part of her passive is her auto attacks will always crit on targets that are slowed by her frost shots, her new passive. Also, Ash can no longer crit on normal strikes. Um, to give you a bit of context, how her new damage actually works, if you have an ID and a PD and have 200 AD, when you crit, it will deal 385 damage with her crit on every auto attack. It does a little bit damage than the normal IE/PD crit for general AD carries, but the trade-off is it's always constant, it's consistent damage. Now for her Q. Ranger's Focus. Because Frost Shot is her new passive, Ashes has a new Q, Ranger's Focus. The passive component gives her stacks of focus and stacking up to 5 times, and when you activate the ability, Ash consumes all focus stacks to gain 40% attack speed for 4 seconds, and if 5 stacks are consumed, you actually get an increased 80. So this skill is an attack speed steroid and also an 80 steroid on her Q. And also, because Frost Shot isn't her Q anymore, it makes it so it's way easier to manage your mana and you don't go when team fighting and stuff, which is really good. Volley didn't really change much. The only real change are lower CD at early ranks and lower mana cost as well. The biggest change, however, is the arrows. There are more arrows fired. The missile width also increased, makes it easier to block arrows, and also if you fire it point blank, you're gonna block every single arrows, and also you can't. It's easier for people to block arrows in general. And do note that when you volley a lot of people, like every single person you hit gives you a stack of focus for your Q, so you can stack that up really fast. Hawkshot lost the passive gold generation bonus, which is pretty sad. It gave a lot Ash like some of her hidden strengths, but the trade-off is it now works with a charge system like Kallista's W, and at rank 2 it gains 2 charges, and it's also global at all ranks. Like the cooldown is super high compared to the old one at level 1, but it goes significantly down at later levels, down to 50 seconds, so it's pretty good. Her ultimate, the slow value decreased. It's not as good anymore, but it still does the same thing. The stun and everything else is the same. So good for that. Now moving on to Akali. Thing for Akali is she got some buffs, but her buffs are pretty useless because look at this. The cooldown went down from early ranks and up until later ranks at level 5. The cooldown is 1 second. The AP ratio went up, but the thing is, she's energy based. It doesn't matter. She's not gonna be able to use the abilities properly, the cooldown properly. She's gonna run out of energy super fast. And also, they also changed the ultimate a little bit. So now when you dash, you go behind the target. It compensates for the old nerf a little bit, but it's not gonna make her any more viable. It adds a little bit of range, but overall, it's not very game changing. Now for Annie, they decreased the auto attack range, which makes a lot of sense because she has the highest auto attack range out of basically any champion except Caitlyn at early levels. So it makes sense that they reduced it by this much because Annie could trade auto attacks super easily against anyone. Um, and it was very hard. Like it adds up. Like if you auto someone 3, 4, or 5 times in lane and they can't trade back because of your stupid range, then yeah, you'll be damaged quite significantly over time. So it's good. But that doesn't make any better because she's still gonna be good mid. Her burst is still the same. Damage is still the same. It's just gonna make her less oppressive in lane with her auto attacks, and that's about it. For Hecarim, of course this nerf, everyone saw it coming. Q costs more mana but does more damage to monsters. That's the change that I have. Like I never thought I would actually see the day they would actually remove the damage reduction on monsters. But let's go. Let's see what the implications are. So the mana cost went from 20, 23, 26, 29, 32 mana to 32, 34, 36, 38, and 40 mana at level 1 to 5 respectively. Now, to put it into context, into perspective so you guys can understand better. His old Q level 5 mana is 32 mana per cast. His new one is 32 at level 1. So apply that logic to any champion and you will see how significantly hurt it will be. He won't be able to spam anymore, he won't be able to spam too much in lane, he won't be able to trade often. So basically, top Hecarim I feel is going to be dead and he's not going to be worth picking anymore. He's not going to be the same lane bully. Of course his late game hasn't changed, his jungling hasn't changed, but actually these mana change affect his jungling quite a lot because he can actually go in the jungle, whereas before he didn't go out of mana. And this time it forces him to start blue for whoever wants to jungle Hecarim. So it's a good nerf. We probably won't see Hecarim anymore, and those who enjoy playing him in the jungle will be able to play him in the jungle super fine. Right now he's going to be the fastest clearing jungler in the game. Literally, yeah, he is the fastest jungler. So moving up to Kalista. Passive no longer gains bonus distance just dashing backwards. That's normal. It's gonna make her easier to catch. She's not gonna be able to kite as hard anymore, and I guess it's due to the rise in popularity and how great of an AD carry she is, providing so much utility, damage, and that ultimate is just so good. So I guess taking a little bit of that kiting power will make her more in line with other marksmen or AD carries. Overall, a good change, and yeah, it's good to see that. This change I don't really understand for Morgana because Morgana mid, like this damage nerf is targeted to Morgana mid. You don't do any damage when you're supporting. Like damage you do with your W is so insignificant that it doesn't really matter. And this is more targeted to mid Morgana, I guess, which doesn't make any sense. Maybe it's played in other regions, but I haven't seen any problems with Morgana at all. And it's taking away her only wave clearing capabilities in lane, which sucks, but well, what can you do? I just don't understand the context between this nerf. Nasus, just a bug fix. His R bonus health appears instantly. It's good, it's always good. Sometimes it's annoying with Nasus and Renekton. They probably changed the same thing for Renekton, and yeah, it's cock blocking yourself is probably the worst feeling. For Nocturne, Nocturne, like this buff is sort of a joke, but at the same time, like 30 damage at level 1 is pretty big. It'll make his dueling at least a little bit stronger, but what I would like to see them do for Nocturne is, if they were going to change his E, is just make his E proc faster. Right now it takes 2 seconds to trigger the fear, which is a long fucking time. If they reduce that to, I'd say 1.5 seconds, that will make him a lot more viable and easier to proc his, basically his only CC, which is good, but this change, not too bad overall. A buff is a buff, whatever. Let's just move on. For Olaf. Olaf now gains sort of like a Righteous Glory-esque kind of bonus when he activates his ult. He runs faster for 1 second, which doesn't seem like a big deal, but it really is. Like the distance you can travel when you activate Righteous Glory and Ghost or whatever summoner spell you use, and now on top of your ultimate, you can close a lot of distance in 1 second, especially since you're not CC'd, so you can, it's effective distance that you're traveling, which is good. It's probably not going to make Olaf like super broken or super viable or make him see more play, but it's a step in the right direction, I guess, which is good for him. Renekton, same thing with Nasus, dominance change, health appears instantly, which is good. And also, they changed something on his W, Ruthless Predator. Now it grants 50 bonus range. Like, I think every on hit change, I'd say Mordekaiser, Renekton, I forgot who else, they gain 50 bonus range on their auto attack. It's just to smoothen it out and make sure you don't run after someone like a moron just because you cast it and you couldn't pull it off. Also, a slight buff on his self stun when he stuns someone, so he can actually move faster and start doing other things instead of being stuck in that animation, which is good. It'll make him a lot more fluid. So overall, it's just quality of life changes for Renekton, and those changes, in my opinion, are really what makes a champion feel good to play, and that's what's important. Not necessarily the power, but just how they feel when you play them. For Riven, movement speed lowered, wind slash speed reduced. Movement speed doesn't matter due to how many dashes she has, and if you ever try to slow Riven and she has all her dashes up, slow doesn't affect her at all. So this change is pretty insignificant, and the only thing it's going to change is when her skills are on cooldown, it's easier a little bit to catch up. Wind slash missile speed reduced by a lot. This is actually, I think, the speed it was at when she was first released, and that was really slow. It's just so that people can outplay her now, can dodge her ultimate, and yeah, Riven nerfs. I'm sure everyone's happy. Rise. No longer one-shots people with Muramana. I guess. It makes sense. Okay, so the passive is just for clarity. Now you see if it's up or if it's down, if you're charging it or if you are on your passive, supercharged. His E doesn't apply single target effects anymore like Muramana, so he doesn't one-shot people. Yeah, that was pretty funny. And also, Desperate Powers fix a bug where casting a spell as Desperate Powers buff expired cause that spell to not go on cooldown. Bug fixes are nice. And anyways, I heard rumors that Rise is actually getting a buff in the upcoming patches. It's good to see that because Rise, when he has his ultimate up and his passive up, he's super broken. But it's so hard, and it's really hard to play him and get him there, that it's just not worth it. And landing his skill is super hard as well. So overall, the Rise change are like okay. Like he can be super broken, but most of the time he's just shit. But he has potential to be really good. Now for Tristana. E does more damage per stack. E's cast time scales with attack speed. Thank God. So the bonus damage per stack went up. It went from 25% to 30%. So at 4 stacks, when you pop it on someone, it does 20% more damage, which is insane. And also, it does even more damage on towers, so she takes down towers even faster. And the cast time is now reduced by attack speed. Thank God for that. That's probably one of the things I hate the most about this spell, is the cast animation is just so garbage that sometimes it's not worth casting it at all. Like, you can misposition yourself by using an offensive ability, which you need to use to do more damage, which didn't make any sense. So this is a great change overall. So good on them to notice that. So for Trundle, Pillar Slow is stronger and knocks units further away. Woohoo! A 5% slow increase. Not a really big deal. I thought it was going to be something more in line with the PBE, like a 70% slow. That would be pretty insane. But the knockback distance is pretty nice, to be honest. When you cast it directly on someone, they get knocked back slightly, knocked up, however you want to call it. But now it's even more. So you can sort of insect people. Like it's going to be like a mini Gragas ult, but not like a Gragas ult. Like, you get the picture. So overall, it's not a big change for our friendly troll, but Trundle's still strong in certain matchups, and yeah, solo queue doesn't really matter, and a buff is a buff, so I'm sure everyone will take it. Xin Zhao. So our knockups applies a brief stun. They say think like Alistar's headbutt. I guess it's good. So when you go in, you ult people, they get knocked back and they get slightly stunned, which is gonna be nice because then your team can actually follow up on it, and also it's going to make your disengage even better. Let's say if you want to run away and some people are chasing you, ulting them will actually create enough distance, or due to the new stun, to make it so you can actually escape easily. Again, it's a small buff, quality of life change, and it's a good buff overall. Now, the biggest one that got people's panties in a bunch. Zed can't teleport back to his death mark shadow instantly. Embrace the Shadow now has a 1 second cooldown before it can be activated to return to Deathmark's Shadow. Alright, this one, for some reason, Zed is getting some nerfs to his ultimate. He can't instantly press R, and he casts it now. Like when he casts it now. He has to wait 1 whole second before returning to his clone. Context for this nerf, I have actually no idea. Maybe they are testing it on Zed, which is, in my opinion, the weaker LeBlanc, before putting it into effect on LeBlanc. That's actually what I think they're trying to do, because I don't get it. LeBlanc isn't getting nerfed at all, but Zed is, which is the weaker assassin version of LeBlanc, because he actually has counterplay, QSS, dodging, while LeBlanc can just fucking QRW you and then one-shot you. But so for some reason, it's not applied to her, and it's applied to him. So maybe they're just trying to see if it's gonna affect him a lot or no. But again, I don't understand the context of this, because Zed is in a good spot right now. He's not too strong, he's not too weak, but somehow LeBlanc hasn't been touched. Like, is this a joke? Is this some hidden Illuminati bias Riot has? I don't really care, but this change on Zed is kind of like unwarranted. It's a pretty big nerf, but at the same time, I'm sure people will learn how to play him differently. So it's not too bad. Now moving on to enchantment. Obviously, Sunhulk is gonna get nerfed again. So what's happening is they removed the ramp up damage on Cinderhulk. Like, it used to be like a Sunfire effect over time where it does more and more damage the longer you stay in combat, but right now it just stays the same damage all the time. So you can't really push faster in lane, and you can't do more damage to champions or creeps. But to compensate that, it always does like the maximum damage it used to do on monsters and jungles. So it's not gonna affect jungle tanks or junglers in general. It's gonna affect top laners. Like, this is one of the reasons why junglers can't have nice things. If some laner finds a way to abuse it, then it's over for us. It's gonna get nerfed. Alright, moving on to Skirmisher Saber. It's probably the same thing. Another nerf to jungle items, which stems from top laners abusing it. The mark time on skirmishers is lowered from 6 seconds to 4 seconds. It's not too bad, since not a lot of junglers will actually go skirmisher, especially not in solo queue. In competitive, there are a couple who does that, but if junglers go for a damaging smite, they will just default to chilling smite. So that's about it. That's all the nerfs we got, changes we got, and also dragon change. Dragon early damage went up a bit. With this change, makes is that certain champions will have a harder time to do the early dragon at level 3 or level 4, but at later level or later stage of the game, it doesn't even matter. So it's fine. I guess, yeah, it's fine. It doesn't really change anything. So I hope you guys enjoyed this patch, and honestly, there hasn't been that much of a change, but I'm guessing next patch is pretty big, since a new champion is going to be out as well. So hope to see you guys then. Ciao ciao.